It is no brainer that Nigeria operates multiple currency regimes, which in turn frustrate businesses. Recently, the World Bank, the IMF, and several financial experts have repeatedly called for the rates to be unified. However, the CBN is yet to consider that option. Even though oil price continues to rally at a neck-breaking pace, gains from higher prices are lost to weaker production level, which external reserves have fallen by 4.2% from its 4-month peak last year. So what alternative does the government have? And the Central Bank of Nigeria plans to unveil a new FX bidding regime to support Nigerian companies in need of Forex, particularly those involved in local production and job creation. According to the APS Bank, the new Forex regime will open up greater opportunities to grow the manufacturing sector and boost employment in the country. With this background, so let's make sense and take a closer look at this latest development. However, of course, you look at how the central bank is going with it in recent months, with external reserve facing lots of pressure there. So let's bring in our guest now, Mr. Olusegun Okwande, chartered accountant. He's here with us in the studio. Thank you for coming. I appreciate your time.
Good morning, Frank, and good morning to our viewers.
Glad to have you again. What do you make of this new drive, the CBN's Forex new drive in support of the manufacturing sector? Of course, this was expected earlier than now, or what's your position on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. When I heard about the new position of CBN coming to see how they can assist what we call the local organization or companies, manufacturing and production to enhance things, it's actually a good step in the right direction. But I always have problem with some of our policies. There has been a series of inconsistency when it comes to implementation. Before now, we've had series of policies that we expect while implementing should be favorable. But you discover that because we hardly punish people when there are deviants in implementation of policy, we go back to status quo and we review another policy. We have more than enough policies on ground that can drive this foreign exchange, considering the fact that it plays a major role in the development of an economy. Come to think about it, the reason why foreign exchange keeps going on is practically we produce nothing. When I mean nothing, I don't know. The only thing I can consider being produced in this country is, as we speak, is crude oil. And even the refined product, where do we get it from? We sell the crude oil out and bring in the processed product. And you can imagine if some of those things are being processed locally here. I can tell you, as we call ourselves the giant of Africa, definitely we have network of countries that we can plug in some of the refined product to, and that would definitely ease the pressure that we have on our foreign exchange. Think about consumables. None of these are being produced locally. Think about plant and equipment that are being used. You and I know so much investment that the government put into Ajaokuta steel company. Most of the, if we have such an agency or such organization still working in Nigeria, you can imagine what kind of fabrications our organization will go into, and we can get some of these things done. Like I keep saying, we have certain policies, we have the people, but the problem we keep having is that we have a failed system, or what we call a failed process. And once that is not actualized, we always create the gap. New thing coming always does not change the status quo. It is how do we implement the policy when it's about to be carried out. One of the idea is that 100 people in 100 days, they'll be able to channel the foreign exchange to the right people that needs it for production. How much of monitoring do we do? I won't want to go into the recent things that we are faced in NNPC. Somebody somewhere by now should be leaving his seat for the failure that we have actually put the businesses in the country. Because you can imagine government coming to the commitment of adulterated fuel. The policy is there on how you must have the right fuel into the country. But now we are having adulterated one, and all we could know is we are going to investigate it. So this new regime too, I have no issue with it. Fantastic policies by our leaders, but the implementation is always the problem, because we hardly bring people that deviate from this policy to justice.
But if you look at the position of Professor Yemi Shivaji, the Vice President, last year he came up with the fact that the CBN needs to perhaps leave the naira or the dollar, the exchange rate, to float. I mean, that's what he was suggesting to central bank, even though some people criticized that move last year. Do you see the necessity for that? Because if you say some of these policies rarely have impact in the economy, so what option do we have left here?
Yeah, I will go the route of saying let the dollar flows, and let the forces of demand and supply place the issue, rather than the CBN, you know, keep providing, you know, this support system, this subsidy, or saying that we are the one playing the major role, like we have with NNPC doing that for the oil and gas sector. It will be better when the law of demand and supply, which is supposed to be the predominant role, but put a check mechanism. What are you using the dollar for? You and I understand that it's been pretty difficult for FDI to come in. And when dollars are not coming in, and you're having more of importation than exportation, you expect that there will be so much pressure on it. But if you allow it to fall on its own. But I know the reason why most people are against the policy of free floating is because there is no control mechanism in place to check activities. Take, for example, somebody buying dollars, or because before now we've been giving dollars to people that wants to travel on Hajj or pilgrimage and all the stuff. What value does that add to the economy? While the major people that needs it in the production suffer for it. So if there are control mechanisms on the value that individual in each sector can put in place, then allow the dollar to take its justice. Allow the free flow. Let the demand and supply push it. Where there is demand and you have shortfall of supply, definitely you know it's going to be high. Then we should go on the route of making sure that we have more of the things that we need to push out for foreign exchange. Part of the things that we can concentrate on is this fintech. If we allow those things to go on board, allow our people to move some of their commodities, some of their skills, some of their services, even from the local government to the external world, then we can have more foreign exchange and by us, so that other thing that has to do with importation then go. Then with that free flow, they will have a better economy, you know, succeeding.
You know, the pressure by the World Bank and IMF is one issue. Then locally, what we also have is the issue of the overhead cost. For instance, if you talk about importation and then you import higher because of the exchange rate has gone high, and then those who, so the competition here, perhaps it's very, very tough, because even those who produce here, we want to you know, compete with those people who will import and export. So how do we harness these differences to ensure that, yes, exportation is cheap against the high import bill we are getting?
Yeah, well, for me, even though I mentioned this, that we should encourage exportation, I feel the first step we need to take is self-sufficiency by discouraging more of importation. What do I mean? Every arm that we need to talk about. How do we promote locally made products? With that, we are circulating our currency within the system without having any influence from the external world. Because as soon as we allow the external world, which is importation, to thrive, it brings more problem for us. And it's not only in the area of manufacturing. It goes to the health sector. When you leave this country to go out for medical checkup, you don't pay naira. You pay in dollars. You pay in pounds. When you leave this when you leave this country for educational improvement outside the shore of this nation, what do you pay? You pay dollars, you pay. So if you are able to put other arms of the, government, education, health, infrastructure into place to support manufacturing and production, definitely you have less pressure. Imagine if the value of foreign exchange on education annually, it's about plus or minus $2 billion. This is just like an estimation. And you are able to reduce that in such a way that everybody, whether you want to have your first degree, your second degree, whatever level of education, you get the best of it locally. That $2 billion can be pushed into other sector for it to grow. That's one. Consider medical thing that most of our leaders are proud of saying. You will see us hearing it on air. This person is out of the country to go and receive medical attention. If some of those money that is being paid in hard currency, because they still need to go through the channel of foreign exchange, and because they are leader, you give preference to such thing. If such money are plowed back into the system where they can have their medical treatment locally, what will be playing around is no longer dollar. It will be the local currency, which will give room to rate. Come about the petroleum product, if we have to refine it locally. Definitely, by the time we have the self-sufficiency in the area of petroleum, you can even export such to the neighboring country. Countries like Ghana, the West Africa, COVID, the East Africa, you comb it, and you set up possibly infrastructure in those areas. And with that, you will reduce drastically the pressure on the foreign exchange. But until these are achieved, whatever policy that is being put in place will continue to put pressure on our foreign exchange, which is not too good for us.
Which is your take in this? To devalue the naira, that is, leave the dollar to float, devalue the naira, or keep maintaining the status quo at the moment? Because some people say if you devalue the naira, because like IMF and World Bank are suggesting to devalue the naira, raise the interest rate, and then import become cheaper. And then once import becomes cheaper, then you can use those materials to produce locally, and then export. You can export cheaply as well. So it seems because Nigeria is left at a crossroad now, do we devalue? Because some say if you devalue, we don't even have templates on ground to, to foster or to drive that devaluation.
I will not support devaluation with the current status where we are, because like you said, there are no mechanism in place to check the activities. IMF putting pressure of saying let the dollar follow, increase the interest rate so that you can have more importation to balance and streamline things. It's not the way to go by my own statistics. Let's discourage as much as we can the issue of importation. I am not even saying let's export more. In as much as I know we are in a global village, can we be self-sufficient so that you and I, this can be produced locally. Your tie can be produced locally. The suit can be produced locally. And when those things are produced and we consume them locally, we don't have that idea of saying, I need Forex to go and buy this. Do you know where it even got worsened? Now, people can buy things online. And it is still our currency that they are making use of. In as much as you are paying with your MasterCard, that thing is converted into dollars, and it still eats our account of saying certain things are being depleted. How can we discourage so much of those activities of people buying things outside the country that we can now consume the things we have to use? An average person, when you look them from head to toe, all is imported. The only thing they've not imported is themselves. Thank God that they are created in the country. Okay,
perhaps we need to look at and make a checklist of what the CBN plays ban on some items to be imported. Are you saying that we should go back and do a checklist of those items again to see which one should we make? Because if you look at it again, whether you like it or not, at least at a point, importation will still be importing some materials since we can't produce those things locally.
We will, but it should be minimal. It's a global village. I am not saying we won't import at all. But can we discourage that the basic thing expected of us to be produced locally? If not for anything, is there a way the government can turn around things? We are all waiting for Dangote about the issue of refining our products. Anytime this product needs to come in, our foreign exchange suffers. And they place premium on such than even other sector, because we need the petrol, we need the diesel, because the power sector is not functioning. So you need those but imagine if those things are produced locally. Do you need foreign exchange to bring them back in? The answer is no. So for me, the CBN can improve the checklist of things that they would discourage. If you go about it, how does the Asia grow to the level at which they are? They believed in themselves. The shoes, the clothes and everything they wear, they place those things and do it locally. So that's why we have encouraged the government, make sure that we provide the basic infrastructure, and one that is strategic to this production and manufacturing. Even if they go this route, is power. How much of it do we have?
Let's try to wrap up with this one now. You talked about earlier how CBN or the government should put a monitoring mechanism to look at this new FX drive for local manufacturers. And you also talked about the fact that they are also looking in the way of, small businesses, like for 100 for 100, that 100 for 100 policy. What are some of the processes or mechanism that we should be looking at to ensure that we maximize that particular policy very well? Because you talk about implementation being a problem as well.
Yeah, if we have the opportunity, the processes that we need to put in place, one, we should try as much as possible to make it IT driven in such a way that you can have the trading of this foreign exchange be transparent in such a way that individual, even though you might need to go through the channel of banks, is what you can trade, like you're trading your stocks, and the forces of demand and supply will not play the role there for you to have some of those things. Everyone is going the route of IT. There are a series of bottlenecks, even in the processing. The real people in the real sector that need the foreign exchange are not getting value that they needed, all because there is one or two or three people somewhere having access to some of these funds that are not needed and being, sold to the people that need it at higher rate, increasing. So first and foremost, let there be transparency in the processing by adopting IT to drive such thing. And if such is put in place, everybody will definitely see, you understand the process of how you can key it in, how you can key in. IT, AI, robotics are being used to do diverse things rather than individual, making that subjective, move in this area. And I think with that, we'll go a very long way in making sure that our foreign exchange is being regulated properly.
We hope that CBN, of course, will hit the ground running with some of the suggestions you made today. Thank you so much, Mr. Olusegun Okunade, a chartered accountant. Thank you for coming on Business Breakfast.
Thank you very much for having me, Frank.